Welcome to the BFIT Blueprint Podcast. We're your hosts, Cody Israel and Brad Durham. For all you BFIT members and beyond, this is where we break down the blueprint of building a healthier, stronger you. In every episode, we share actionable tips, expert advice, and real stories to inspire you to level up your mind, body, and lifestyle. Whether you're just taking your first step or pushing for the next breakthrough, we've got the tools to get you there.
Hey guys, I am Cody Israel, head coach here at BFIT CrossFit.
And I'm Brad Durham, owner and operator here at BFIT CrossFit, and we are excited that you are joining us for the first episode of the BFIT Blueprint.
Yep, and if you're in the Midwestern area, there's a good chance you're still at home snowed in behind 18 inches of snow that we're potentially getting here this week. So this will drop on Wednesday, January, 7th or 8th in there?
Yeah, and I tell you what, Snowmageddon, I'm hoping just disappears in the next 24 hours.
Well, this is all that snow that we should have got through November, December, just was waiting for it, and it's all just coming at once right now.
I'd rather have a white Christmas than a white New Year.
Me too. I really think this is in my 29 years of being on this earth, I think this is the most snow that I've seen, like, prediction here in the Midwest.
Yeah, that I don't know. I just know when I lived in Ohio, we had an 18-inch snow, and it shut Columbus, Ohio down for like 4 days.
Nice.
So what that looks like here in the Midwest, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we are excited to bring you new and improved podcast material this year. As you can see, if you've been a fan of the show for a year, a little more than a year now, we've got some upgrades around the place. So we're excited to bring you some new, fun content, but also a little bit higher quality in what we're doing here.
And excited for the sponsors. Colony House, Precision Metal, Denton Bratton Dental Company. Excited for all three of those and grateful for them coming along. And just kind of kicking off the whole idea, the BFIT Vision in 2025. I wanted to speak to the members real quick. Guys, we're excited for this programming that we're going to be bringing, and there's going to be a lot of ideas woven through this podcast that's going to then filter down to talk directly to them. But we feel like it's going to be able to reach and be able to touch lives outside of the gym. Inside and outside is our goal. We want our members to know that, hey, like, we are excited to add, some more ways for you to track your progress, to see what is working, what's not working inside the gym here. But also we want to help people outside of BFIT be able to maybe start their fitness journey, maybe continue on pushing through some plateaus and help them also.
Yeah, everything we are going to talk about today in a broad sense applies to everyone inside BFIT, but also outside BFIT, So we're going to talk about some broad, general, like, fitness principles and just some ideas, whether you're just getting started in the gym with it being the new year or whether you've been a long time gym goer. Like, what we're going to talk about can apply to everyone in the gym.
And if you're interested in anything, beyond connecting with Cody and I, if you're not a gym member out there in the Midwest, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to give advice through, emails, text messages. We are always available to help people. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. Like, this is the goal. Like, we want people to get better. We want them to be fitter, to be healthier. And, I think that's what kind of kicks off this whole idea of the process.
Yeah. And I think, to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, like, we want to meet you where you're at. So if you're coming in just brand new off the streets or reaching out to us, never been in lifting before but want to get into lifting, like, we're going to start you at your ability. So if you have no idea weight training, you're probably not going to pick up a weight for a little while. You're going to practice moving your body, controlling your body, going from there. But in regards to today, what we're going to talk about is, when you're getting into the gym, whether it's your first time or you've been in the gym for a while, the importance of kind of tracking your data and kind of keeping tabs on how much you've done in the past, what you've done in the past, so that you have a guideline on where you're going in the future.
Definitely. I think that for me, that's probably one of the hardest things is remembering to track. I mean, I even have the apps and stuff, and so it's always hard for me to go back and, oh yeah, well I did this last week. If I don't put that down, it's hard for me to remember those things. And so just having an emphasis on that, I think, is even going to help me personally.
Yeah, and I guess I should clarify, when we're talking about tracking, we're talking about the main things we're talking about, I guess, today is tracking our weights in the gym. Keeping tab on how much volume we do, how many sets and reps and the weight we did in the weeks previous. And also when it comes to like our body fat percentage and stuff like that. Like we're not going to talk about weight on the scale, and we'll explain why in a little bit. But those are the main things we want to talk about, is your volume and the amount of weight and stuff you're moving in the gym, and then your body fat percentage.
Most certainly. Because, Cody, that's one thing I feel like you've just really helped open my eyes to, is that, percent body fat and muscle mass are huge health indicators for where you are personally. And, can you elaborate just a little bit on that? Just like, why are those two things so important?
Well, when most people want to come to the gym, most of the time it's because they want to make a change in their life in some aspect. And a lot of times that comes down to their physique. Maybe they're not happy with the way they look, or maybe they want to put on some muscle mass, all of those things. And lifting weights and building muscle is going to help with that in a multitude of ways. And the very first way is it's going to boost your metabolism. Okay. So obviously you're getting in the gym and you're doing more exercise, you're moving more, but you're also in the process of building muscle. That's going to help you burn more calories. Okay, so if you think of it like a savings account, like an IRA or something like that, it earns interest over time. Okay, so your muscle mass you have on your body, just sitting here at rest, is going to burn more calories as you're just not doing anything, versus if you have less muscle mass, if that makes sense. Because muscle is a very expensive tissue. It takes a lot of calories to maintain it. Okay, so while you're here at rest, if you have a lot more muscle mass, then you're going to burn more calories doing the same thing as someone else just sitting here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, most certainly. So somebody who is just starting in their fitness journey, what could they expect? How quickly could somebody build muscle mass, maybe lose percent body fat, versus somebody who's been in their fitness journey for a while? Are they going to burn faster and build faster, or how does that kind of all play out?
So that's a very tedious question, but I would say usually the beginners are going to build more, are going to have a faster rate of muscle gain than a more experienced lifter. And that's, you'll hear this term thrown around in like the bodybuilding world of the noob gains. All right, so that's your first 1 to 2 years in the gym. Like, if you're consistent and have, honestly, you don't even probably have to follow good programming. You can just, throw stuff at the wall and it'll stick and you'll gain muscle, because you're sending a brand new signal, a brand new stimulus to your body, and your body's going to adapt very rapidly because it's something it's never done before. But no, even if you've been a long-time gym goer, 5, 10, 15 years, you can still build muscle mass. Now, it's going to take probably a little bit more looking back at what you've been doing and kind of pivoting a little bit, because as an experienced lifter, the biggest potential for muscle gain is by doing something you haven't been doing, like sending a new stimulus. So if I'm an Olympic lifter and all I do is, snatches and cleans, I might get a lot of benefit from doing more of a bodybuilding style, like strength training cycle, to focus on the muscle groups and muscles that I neglect, because I might be really weak there. And if I get better and get stronger doing those, then I'm probably going to build more muscle mass than if I continue to do the same thing over and over again. Like, it's going to take me probably a little bit longer to gain muscle mass.
So somebody who, like myself, I lifted in high school, I lifted through college, playing sports and, in football and stuff. And have been lifting for years. A bodybuilding cycle or something other than cleans and snatches, deadlifts, squats would be beneficial for me, is what you're saying, which I've been doing that through my rehab on my elbow, and I definitely could see my pulling ability has definitely increased. And I feel like my muscle mass through my lats and my shoulders has increased.
Yeah, and that it kind of goes to what I was saying, but also, like, it's like a double whammy, because it also, like that side of training is also very good for your joints and like your tendons because if someone's doing a lot of Olympic weightlifting or CrossFit, for example, like a lot of those movements are very like concentric. Like there's not really much controlling the eccentric. There's a lot of, maybe a lot of bouncing or a lot of just like slamming, not necessarily slamming and not controlling it down using the momentum. And that necessarily isn't as beneficial for your joints as being able to control it through the whole range of motion. Like think of something like we'll just throw a basic bicep curl. Like you're controlling it all the way down, all the way up. And that's not super hard on your tendons. It's very good for your tendons and your joints. Your tendons love blood flow, and that's what you're doing, controlling that there.
And you're not going to get that in a clean or a snatch.
Yeah.
It's impossible. We're not saying those are bad movements.
No, those are great.
Those are great movements. But maybe it's time for a 6-week cycle of something that's not so explosive and maybe a little slower, a little bit more focused on some muscle groups. I know that we've talked a lot about just eccentric squatting for my knees and how that's been super helpful for me, because I do deal with a lot of knee pain just all the years and surgeries. And that doesn't mean I'm going to go light. I mean, I built up to 5 sets of 1 on the eccentric, and it was heavy, which was fun actually.
Yeah.
And I went 5 count down, which was super hard.
Those are terrible.
Horrible.
Why would you do that? Just kidding.
I built up to about 85% of my max at 5 count down and then standing straight up, and I was like, whoa, my legs are on fire.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like heavy is always relative. When we talk about heavy in the gym, I think people always get a bad connotation of like, oh, we're like a max out or I'm going as heavy as I can. It's like not necessarily. Like maybe we're doing sets of 12, but it's something heavy for a set of 12. Like by the end, the last 3 reps, it should be like, oh my gosh, my legs are shaking. Something along those lines. So just making sure, having the knowledge of knowing that heavy is relative.
The BFIT Blueprint is brought to you by the Colony House, where furniture shopping is as comfortable as the pieces you'll find there. With the best selection of furniture and mattresses, they make it easy to love coming home after a long day of crushing your goals. Want to elevate your living space as much as your fitness goals? Head to Riverside and Frederick for a personalized shopping experience you'll actually enjoy at the Colony House in St. Joseph.
How does that transition into other markers? Talking about like stronger bones, increasing metabolism. Let's kind of transition into like, how does that work? How does that kind of play into this whole tracking and lifting heavy, doing some different style of lifting to build some muscle? What does that do for us?
Well, obviously lifting weights will, so we'll just use your example of developing stronger bones there. So obviously our bodies are well-oiled machines. They adapt to what we give it. So think of it like, obviously we know we lift heavier weights, our muscles get stronger. Well, it's the same thing with our bones. Like if we get under a heavy squat, okay, say when we start it's 100 pounds. Well, our body adapts to that. Our bones get stronger, get better at holding weight on our back. Okay, well, you get stronger, you get up to 200 pounds. Your body adapts to that. Your bones get stronger. You're able to hold that weight on your back, and so on and so forth. And the reason why that is important, because as we get older, obviously our bones tend to get weaker and weaker, and we can kind of help offset that by continuing weightlifting as we go.
So it's just even holding weight, like we've been doing. We just finished up our cycle where we were holding the front rack, for 30 seconds at 110% of our max. And that's even just that there. Is that putting the stress on the bones that you're talking about?
I mean, that's gonna send a stimulus, yes, that is good for that. I mean, obviously we're doing that for other reasons other than that, but yes, that will help send a signal, especially for someone who is untrained. Picking up a heavy weight and holding it, they're going to see some muscle growth and some benefit from that.
Even an older person too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Increase some bone density. I mean, I know I'm always pressing our older folk to go a little heavier on that. To just standing there with that barbell, does the back rack or the front rack make any difference? I mean,
obviously you can load it up heavier in the back rack. In this example of just holding it, you can load it up heavier. I mean, depends on what you're going for, I guess.
Gotcha.
So
that's good. It's good to know. So does that, if we're building this muscle mass, what else does that help us do? Does that increase our metabolism? What does that do? You made reference to that
we touched on the metabolism, but kind of I wanted to touch on, I don't know, for the nerds out there that want to know why, is because Well, I guess so. Obviously, I explained why that, but it helps with the metabolism. So it helps regulate your blood sugar. So everybody knows, like, after you eat lunch, if you're, I always think of like sitting at a desk job, okay? And, you go eat lunch and you come back and you hit a major crash. And everybody's like, oh, man, I need that 2 o'clock coffee wake-up call.
Oh, that's not okay?
Well, that essentially is your blood sugar kind of crashing a little bit. And there's multiple ways you can kind of help offset that by moving after you eat, taking a 10-minute walk, stuff like that. But having more muscle mass helps regulate your blood sugar because a lot of that extra glucose, a lot of that carbohydrates and stuff gets stored in your muscles. So the more muscle mass you have, the more carbohydrates and glycogen your body's able to hold in itself that keeps it out of the bloodstream.
Okay, and so when it's in the bloodstream, that's when you have that crash.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then that can lead to some other things like insulin resistance, stuff like that, because your body's got to create insulin. Your pancreas creates insulin to help kind of shuttle all the glucose and sugar into your muscles. And if you got an overabundance of that in your bloodstream, it doesn't work properly, and then and too much insulin in the bloodstream can lead to like diabetes and chronic disease and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So it's a big
vicious cycle.
Yeah, so like that's why I always stress to our members, like, building muscle mass is going to benefit you greatly. And it's hard for me to go into a deep conversation in class like, hey, like, it's more important than you probably actually think. So being able to explain stuff like that on the podcast here, is massive.
Definitely. Understanding that just simply strength training, actually just in strength training, remember, it can be a lot of different things. When we say that, don't think it's like, I think Cody addressed this earlier, don't think I just have to do 1 rep maxes all the time. I mean, body weight strength training, light, high volume, lower weight, which we're going to talk about shortly. All those things are strength training. Just doing that changes all that, helps with all those issues that we see America's being faced with today.
Oh yeah, and there's plenty more like benefits to it. Like it decreases your risk of heart attack, helps lower your LDL cholesterol, HDL increases, all of that stuff like that. But I think the one that will probably hit home with most people is like increasing your quality of life, just being able to, I especially want to emphasize as you get older, you have kids, you have grandkids, you're going to, like, the more muscle mass you have, the easier you're going to be able to move. You're going to be able to get down and up off the ground and play with your grandbabies. You're going to be able to play sports with them, throw a ball if you need to, all of those things, like, and how much more, like, how much greater of a quality of life that is, I don't even know if we can put that into words. Like, what's those Geico commercials? Like, it's priceless. Like, I think that's how important, building muscle and maintaining your quality of life is as we get older.
Almost.
And these all kind of relate. Having stronger bones. That's if you happen to fall while playing with your grandkid, you can get back up and all this stuff. So,
well, I tell people the reason I CrossFit, the reason I do all this is because, yes, I want to be able to run a mile and still have enough energy to fight. I think that's just cool. I mean, I look up to Navy SEALs and those guys. Those guys are incredible who can do that, and those women who can do that too. I want to be able to go out and run routes with my boys when they want to throw the football to me. I want to be able to get on the ice and skate with my daughter. She does figure skating. And I feel like if I don't do what I do training-wise, that's going to leave me. I mean, especially like I referenced earlier, all the knee surgeries I have. If I stop, I feel like my body literally would fall apart. And I'm only, 43 years old now. I want to be doing this stuff when I'm 63 because I want to be able to play with my kids as kids in the same way. I want Grandpa to go out and, be able to run a flag or a post route, to my 7-year-old grandson.
And then grab your hamstring as you're running this big snap.
I didn't say I'd be running fast.
Yeah.
But I'll be running.
That's right. So. But, okay, so I think we covered kind of why building muscle mass and strength training is important.
Definitely.
And so I think now we can kind of go through kind of why it's important to go through different kind of rep ranges and different rep schemes and sets and stuff, and how to track that as we go. Mm-hmm. And I think the main things we're going to talk about today is cycling through higher reps, so We can think anywhere from 10 to 30, but we're going to use 15 as our example today. And then medium reps, you can think, 8 to 12. 6 to 12, somewhere in there. And then low reps, anywhere from 1 to 5. Okay, and that kind of relates back to what I said earlier, where in the experienced lifter, where you're going to get a lot of gains is doing the thing that you haven't been doing because it's a new stimulus and a very high potential for muscle growth. So cycling through each one of these rep ranges is going to provide a new stimulus, which in turn is going to provide more muscle growth. Yeah. And there's not necessarily a right or wrong way to cycle through these. You could start with high. So say you're going to peak for a powerlifting or a lift-off thing like we're going to have here in April in our gym. So you might start with higher reps and work your way down to lower reps. But now for someone, say, who traditionally always does higher reps and wants to, start strength training a little more, I'm going to be like, okay, we're going to do something you've never done before. We're going to start with the low reps, okay, because they're going to see a huge response right off the bat, and then I'll work their way up, as they go.
So with an inexperienced lifter or someone who hasn't done that, should they be worried about percentages? Is that how they should work off of that? Or should they just work off like an RPE scale of, hey, this is heavy? Or what would you say the best way for them to know where to start and how to track that to be?
Well, if we're talking a brand new lifter to the gym, I probably won't start them here. But if someone, has been in the gym 6 to 8 months or so and has a good background of the barbell movements, your squat, overhead press, deadlift, if they know their percentage, I might give them a percentage, or I'll be like, hey, this is what it should feel like by the end. Like by the time you finish say we're doing sets of 15, by the time you finish your 15th rep, you should feel like you could do maybe 2 to 3 more with good form. Okay. And if your form starts to break down before you get to that rep range that you're shooting for, then you need to take some weight off, because if your form starts to break down and you continue to push through those reps, all you're doing is training bad movement patterns, and that is not going to help you develop the muscles you want to develop or develop the movement patterns you want to develop. There is less benefit that way if you're trying to grind through, weight just to get to a certain rep range. I would much rather see someone take some weight off and hit all clean reps with a little bit less weight.
Well, and also you decrease the chance of injury.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, as soon as you start, arching it back, or, even I think about people who are bench pressing and they really drive those hips up off the bench, and they really arch that back, and I'm like, oh,
well,
no.
Now if your butt's coming off the bench, yes, I would agree.
That's what I'm saying. When the butt's flying up, and they're
yes.
trying to almost turn it into a decline, I'm like, oh man, just don't hurt yourself.
Yeah, because that's a leverage thing. Because if you see like the strongest bench pressers in the world, they're doing that.
Their backs are arched, most certainly.
Yeah, but we don't be overdo. But and I think especially to like a deadlift and a squat, like you get to those heavy weights, and if you sometimes you can visibly see people starting to shift their hips. It's like, okay, we need to pull some weight off here. And one, we need to address some strength balance issues side to side. But first off, we need to not have them going that heavy for that many reps.
Most certainly, yeah.
So
injury can happen quickly and easily with bad form.
Yep. So we want to make sure we hone in on that first. So kind of the stimuluses with each of those different rep ranges, starting with the 15-ish, you're probably going to be looking at more. Now, all of these rep ranges are going to build muscle mass, but there is a slightly different stimulus with each one. And with the higher reps, you're probably maybe looking at more endurance-based. The amount of volume in a short amount of time that your body can handle, like for high reps. Like you think endurance, like an endurance runner, like that's kind of how it translates over to in the fitness world. Like you're going to get really good at high reps. You're going to build some muscular endurance on that.
And that's a great place to start and try to build muscle mass, right?
Yeah, because normally at that weight or at that rep range, your weight's going to be a little bit lighter, which also is going to decrease your injury risk as well, because you're most likely not going to have those malfunctions in your form.
Gotcha. And not to go too deep in the anatomy, does that rep range break the muscle down in a different way than, say, the 1 reps? Like if we're doing endurance, does that do something different to the muscle per se, or does it break it down in the same realm? The BFIT Blueprint is brought to you by Bratton Dental Company, where your smile is our priority. At Bratton Dental, we combine state-of-the-art technology with personalized care to give you the confidence you deserve. From routine cleanings to advanced cosmetic and restorative treatments, our expert team is here to help every step of the way. Ready to love your smile? Visit BrattonDentalCo.com today and schedule your appointment. Bratton Dental Company, bringing life to your smile. Or is that too deep for the anatomy?
Well, I don't know if it really has much to do with the anatomy. I mean, it's a different stimulus for sure. I don't know if it breaks I'll be honest, I don't know if it breaks the muscle down in any different way. Obviously, you're going to be able to do more volume there because you're going to be lighter weight, but for a lot of reps. Your volume's going to add up quicker, so you're going to work on the endurance aspect.
Okay.
Versus in, like, we'll go to hypertrophy next. You know, hypertrophy in the traditional sense, you're talking about like muscle growth, getting a muscle bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
That's kind of what I was wondering on the endurance side. Does that do the same thing as hypertrophy?
You will hypertrophy the muscles. You'll make the muscles bigger, but probably to a lesser extent as you would.
You almost go past that hypertrophy stage.
Because you get almost more cardiorespiratory in it than you do like the muscle. Like you're not lifting as heavy, so you're not going to send the stimulus to build as much muscle mass.
So you don't want to live in that endurance stage forever.
No, that's what I was saying. Yeah, you want to rotate through these.
Yeah, most certainly.
So,
and that's why, because you're not going to actually, if you just do sets of 15 and 20, you're never going to actually make the gains that you're looking for. You do have to change that stimulus.
Yeah, you'll get really good at the 15 to 20 rep range, and you will build some muscle mass, but you're going to be limited on how much you can build. And then, like I said, going to the hypertrophy, this is your traditional, bodybuilding rep range, usually where they will kind of live in. And I think it's gotten better as more studies have came out on the benefits of switching through rep ranges. But yeah, that 8 to 12, 6 to 12 range is where you can get a lot of bang for your buck when it comes to muscle size, because you can still get heavy enough to send the strength signal, but also get enough volume in with the amount of reps you're doing to get a lot of muscle size as well. And that's why a lot of bodybuilders, they'll be in that range a lot.
Most certainly.
And then now transitioning to the lower reps, which traditionally you'll see 1 to 5-ish. And that's where you'll see a lot of like power lifters and Olympic weightlifters, because that's where you're going to get a lot of strength, because there is a difference in size, strength, and endurance.
Most certainly.
Okay, because if you look at because you'll take a look at a lot of power lifters, they can lift a lot more weight than bodybuilders, but they'll be a lot smaller than bodybuilders too.
Yeah, they are. Aren't they?
Because that's that strength stimulus. That's what they train, is that low rep, high weight, being able to fire rapidly and recruit all of your muscles in a short amount of time and lift the maximal weight.
Okay, that makes really good sense. And hopefully out there, if you are wanting to start a program, if you're looking to jump into something new, you look through that for those rep range changes. Hopefully you can see that they're not just living for 6 weeks or 8 weeks in one of those 3 ranges, that they do move you through that, because ultimately we do feel like, one of the greatest measurements of fitness is the muscle mass growth. And you're not going to get that just living there, because the stimulus, like you said, isn't going to be there. The change in stimulus.
Yeah, you're only going to get one of the 3 versus cycling through all of them. You'll get all of the 3 different benefits of strength training.
And I think that's kind of rolling into something that's going on here at BFIT as we're going into 2025. Is we're going to be using the Hume Body Pods to measure people's muscle mass. And over the next 3 months, our rep ranges are doing exactly what Cody has talked about. We're going through the endurance side. We're going through the hypertrophy side. We're going through the strength side. And we are hoping that we can see some numeric changes over the next 3 months in people's muscle mass. Hopefully we can also see some numeric changes in the percent body fat over the next 3 months through our programming, as we're trying to give you guys a measurement to be able to look back at 3 months from now and say, hey, what I did, I grew some muscle, I decreased some fat. And hopefully that's a motivator, because I think that's probably the biggest thing that people stop going to the gym is they don't feel motivated. They don't see progress. And so it's like, well, why am I doing this? Why do I keep, getting up every day if I don't see any change? And I think that that's the thing, like we talked about earlier, is just being able to see the tracking aspect, being able to see the change over time. And your body hopefully is changing too. Hopefully you can physically see something.
Yeah. And part of that, and the reason why we chose like body fat percentage and muscle mass over like weight on the scale is because the weight on the scale can be very deceiving. So in an example, so say someone from just starting at the gym, so they might weigh themselves and they come in at 150 pounds. Okay. Well, they start working out and then they, check back in a month and they're like, oh my gosh, I've gained weight. I'm 155 pounds.
Yep.
Well, that person may not know that they have lost 5 pounds of fat and gained 10 pounds of muscle. And so their body fat percentage changed drastically in a good direction.
Yes.
So being able to have tools for you to access and track these things is super important. And one thing to note with like scales that do this, like bioelectrical impedance, stuff like that, takes like electrical signal through your body to measure these things, take it with a grain of salt. It may not be 100% accurate, but it gives you a starting point and a guideline, something to go back to and track.
And if you always use the same measurement, the same tool to measure every time, it should show that progress. It's not going to be, you may go do a different scale, may say something completely different than what this scale says, but if you use this scale every time, like scale B, you're always using scale B and you see progress on scale B, then progress has happened.
Yeah, and I would always recommend like doing it under the same circumstances.
Yes.
Like, don't come in one morning at 5 a.m. and do it, and then the next time you come in, it was at 6:30 at night and do it. Those are going to show two completely different things on the scale that doesn't reflect kind of what actually happened there.
And before and after workouts.
Yeah, because the amount of body or the amount of water in your body can greatly affect the body fat percentage on the scale. Like the more water, if you hydrate yourself a ton, it's going to show a lower body fat percentage versus if you are super dehydrated, because these scales register water as fat-free mass. So you're gonna weigh more, but your body fat percentage or your fat is still gonna be the same. So it's going to make your body fat percentage lower.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so don't be messing with the scale trying to jack your number down or anything like that.
So just chug a bunch of water, my body fat's gonna go down.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, as we're kind of to kind of wrap up episode 1, the BFIT. Hey, gang, we are going to be doing these rep ranges. We're going to be, tracking through the Hume Body Pod. We're also going to be doing some actual benchmarks. We're going to, hit up Fran here in January. We're going to be doing just some different things, helping you look back and look forward, and hopefully see some really good success. The big thing is fitness does not happen overnight. And I think that's kind of where we want to leave you at, is that you are not going to have overnight changes. You can have changes in 2 to 3 months, but you're not going to have, it's not a one day and it's done.
Yeah. The worst cycle that we can get into is, a binge and purge cycle when it comes to fitness. Like you go super hard for 1, 2, 3 months at a time, and then you're like, oh man, my results are stuck, I'm just going to stop going. And then just repeating that cycle over and over again. We do this stuff. We build muscle. We do fitness for the long game. All of the things we talked about earlier in the podcast, we do this for not the now, not the next year, maybe the next year, whatever, but also for the next 15, the next 20, the next 30, 40, 50 years down the road. That way we can do all the things that we mentioned in the earlier part of the podcast.
And we will definitely take new people, New Year's resolutions, all that, but we don't go after, hey, the 8 or 12 week fitness program just to, knock off 4 or 5 pounds and look better for April. I mean, I think that's probably the best thing, is we want people who are in this for the long haul.
Yeah. And that's not to say, like, say if you have something coming up, if you have a wedding or if you have a vacation or something you want to get, in shape for, we can help you with that. We want to do it in a smart way versus just just stop eating everything and just doing a bunch of cardio and stuff in the gym. Like, there is a better way to do things than that. And we would love to help anybody with that. And hopefully today's podcast helps kind of get that message out there of what we think is the most important and what to focus on in the gym. And then in the future podcast, we'll talk about more specific ways to go about this and, like, you know, the best exercises that we think can benefit you the most and help build muscle mass and all of that stuff. But we wanted to get our point across today of the focus should be on strength training in order to help all of these other aspects in the gym and out of the gym, in the now and in the future.
Most certainly. I think that's a great place to end it. Great job today, Cody Israel. First podcast for the BFIT Blueprint.
And we'll catch you in February.
See you in February. The BFIT Blueprint is sponsored by Precision Metalworks. Attention, makers, creators, and doers. When precision is key, you need a partner you can trust. That's where Precision Metalworks comes in. With decades of experience crafting high-quality custom metal components, they bring your vision to life with precision engineering, unbeatable craftsmanship, and a commitment to excellence. Whether you're in aerospace, automotive, or looking for that one-of-a-kind custom project, they've got the tools and experience to get it done the right way the first time. Don't settle for less. Choose Precision Metalworks, where innovation meets precision. Visit precision-metal-works.com today, and let's build something amazing together.